Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are back. Oh, Zub's got on the hat.
Oh,
It's Brandon Polinick week.
He's so back.
He's so back.
He's so back.
His kids are grown up. He's back.
Bass fishing is better when Brandon Polinick is good.
Yeah.
Bass fishing is better when Brandon Polinick is sleeping out of a truck and not an RV.
I think is he still in the RV? I think he's still in the RV.
No, he has the go fast camper.
Yeah, but wasn't like his kids with him this week?
Oh,
I don't know.
kids.
They're older.
Who cares?
He's so back. One bad year, but he's back.
Yeah.
One blip in a 15-year career of the elites, right?
Didn't even have to fish on the last day.
No, which is crazy.
That blew my mind. And guys were putting up some bags too, but the guys that put up the bags were just a little too far behind. Like sweet baby John Garrett can catch him. Koyo figured it out finally. Too.
Sweet baby John's on a run right now.
Yeah,
AOI,
generational
maybe.
run. I
Koya
locked
had
it
a
in earlier for Brian
horrible
Schmidt. He's
finish.
my pick. But
Koya had a horrible finish at
the Johns, right?
yeah.
Where did he end up?
Last-ish. Not great.
Yeah, well, I mean, John Garrett had, I'm looking at it right now, he had 10 pounds on the first day.
Yeah, no, he didn't dig himself.
That's-
I think it was the first day he had the bad day.
He had
I know
10
everybody
pounds on the
always-
first day, then he had 22.7, 23.3, and then 23.5.
He figured something out.
He figured it out. I think he had the most after the day one. He had the most consistent bags, though, I believe, and he wasn't catching he had a big fish, but he wasn't propelled by like a 9, 11, 10, 11 pounder on either day, right?
No,
I think
no,
so,
he
no.
caught a 7 on the last day, and I think he caught a 7 on day 3, but
But that's
Mostly
not like a
just
true, bag
No.
carrier,
no, he was filling out with 4-pounders,
Just a
Exactly.
casual 4-pounder.
which is
For that
interesting, and that kind of brings me in. There's a lot of stories to talk about with this tournament, and this probably isn't like the story at the forefront of everybody's mind, but talking about John Garrett got me thinking about it because he was not the only one, but definitely the highest finishing guy who was actually in the lake.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
really? Yeah.
That's the one person that actually figured out how to fish. I don't know. This is going to be a bold take. The real Lake Okeechobee, not
Not a canal.
not a loophole.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at your top 10, right, you have Polinick, who was canal. You have John Garrett in the lake, Koya, canal, Will Davis, canal,
Davis was
Bob
mixing both,
Downey
though.
was in the lake, David Gaston was fishing canals, Greg was kind of both, but most of his weight was canals. Trey McKinney also kind of both, but I would say most weight in
Oh,
the beginning of the tournament was canal, end of the tournament was in the lake.
well, there's
Yeah.
a difference though because one is canal, and I would call canal still fishing Okeechobee in a way, but there's canal and then there's spillway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really, really want to get specific, there's canal, there's Kissimmee River,
There's
there's
a river, there's Rim Canal.
Spillway, there's,
yeah.
but I'm gonna
Non-traditional.
non-actual Lake Okeechobee as just canal.
Right.
Not flipping grass, not punching mats, not.
Yeah, and here's my question, and I don't think this is a question we even have an answer for. I don't expect either of you to be able to give me this answer. I think maybe our sweet DQ'd baby Scott Martin might be the only person who could give me an actual answer about this. But have these fish always been in the canals and nobody did it? Or did they move into the canals because how the lake is right now?
Well, I might be able to answer this one out of my brief experience in Florida. I pre-fished the national championship after a fairly strong rain event.
Yeah.
During that fairly strong rain event, they were creaming water out of Toho. They were pulling water like crazy. They were dropping like 2 feet a day. They were letting a lot of water out of Lake Toho. And I went to the Lake Toho spillway, which you cannot fish in tournaments, by the way. You cannot fish that area. You can't fish, I think it's like 100 yards past the buoys of the Lake Toho spillway in a tournament. But you can fish there when you're practicing. We cracked them. The amount of life were there. I mean, we dropped 36. I mean, we were using shiners half the time. Like, I'll fully admit it. We were just. But no, I mean, we were still kept. But like, I was with my buddy's dad, and my buddy's dad was just putting on a clinic. I was trying to jerk bait and a glide, and he's just bombing a shiner out there, laying on him. But the whole thing is, that's why I said like the loophole, because it is tournament legal waters for them. They did nothing illegal, but those fish congregate in those spillways, and it's a known thing.
Yeah,
I feel
mean,
like they've always been
absolutely.
there. Like,
but only when the conditions are right. And if you listen to them, they were dropping water out of Okeechobee like crazy, especially with the reports of the lower units on everybody.
Yeah, but that was a spillway coming into Okeechobee.
yeah, not Okeechobee
Right.
dropping.
Right, but that means if Okeechobee's dropping, I would believe that there's just water moving through the system. You know what I mean?
I mean,
I think
feel
the
like if
spillway
it's
could have
there-
just not been emptying into Okeechobee to like.
I mean,
prevent it
I
from
felt like in what I watched of them talking on live, Polinick and Greg were mostly talking about how like the conditions actually weren't ideal for it, and that there wasn't enough water coming through.
I heard that as well.
It
which
looks
is why
pretty
like,
stagnant.
It's an interesting take. But those fish have definitely always been there.
I think they were recently discovered with live scope that they were like targetable, just cranking in the middle of the canal at the spillway there.
Well, they
Because
said there was a high spot.
Yeah. But I'm sure like, yeah, people noticed a high spot there, but like did people actually really fish it until they scanned over it with scope and went?
And I'm sure if they saw fish there, they always thought that the fish there were bycatch, tilapia, crappie.
well,
Yeah.
here's the other thing though, right? Okay, so obviously that spot was the big player here and the tournament winning spot and all that. But you had Koya who was fishing, who was just like live scoping in the middle of a part of the rim canal.
Right.
That it was around like it was out in front of where those like residential canals are, but it was just out in the rim canal. You had Will Davis, who decided to vacate the spot to let Polinick have it and winds up catching 23 pounds on the last day, like half a mile further up the canal, just on the canal bank. You have David Gaston, who was in a completely different canal, just fishing down riprap and catches an 11.5 pounder. I mean, and then you have Trey McKinney, who was in that like backwater canal and had that big bag on day one. So you have a lot more playing here than just that spillway. There seems to be spots all over these canals that not only has fish. I mean, it's always been known that you could go up there and like throw a buzzbait down the bank or fish the bank grass or whatever and get a few quick bites. But, 25 plus pound bags in the canals in all over the place, is something I had never heard about until Tyler Rivette in the Kissimmee River.
Yeah.
But the one thing I could argue is that Polinick really didn't need forward-facing sonar to catch the fish he was catching.
No, for sure not.
He wasn't targeting them really. No.
So it's it's not like forward-facing sonar was something that blew this bite wide open. This was.
I'm just saying with like FFS that they were able to start noticing, like, hey, maybe that's a bass out there. Like, I feel like it was just not a thing to sit there like Koya, out there targeting fish. Just something to give you confidence of like, oh, maybe there's something going on out there that like people didn't really think to go off the bank before in Okeechobee. Like they were like, oh, I'm just gonna go punch pads and do the Okeechobee thing up in 2 feet of water.
Yeah, which is what really stemmed my original question is like, stuff like what Polinick and Greg were doing is, they weren't like staring at their graph, shaking a minnow. Like, so you would assume that would have been tapped into previously. Like, that's not a forward-facing sonar dependent thing. And especially when you're talking about a spillway,
Yeah.
that's not like a new novel idea, especially in Florida. Like, so that's why I say, like, have more fish relocated into the canals because it's more stable, cleaner water. I mean, we know the problems that are going on in the lake. I don't think there's going to be like a mass migration way up the river, but I think fish that live on the edge of the lake in
Might be
spots
like
that used to have grass that are now muddy, they need somewhere to go.
they're slinking into
I don't
the
know.
canal.
It seems to me like obviously part of this bite was unlocked with forward-facing sonar. Yes. But it does seem to me like there might be more fish in those canals than there used to be.
No, I couldn't agree more with that. And it's also the fact that maybe that the canal bite just wasn't always a thing because they didn't think it'd be consistent enough as well, too. I'm sure that guys have got bass there before. But
I'm sure there's some sneaky locals that just never told.
You can't have those off days. Like you weren't going to have the consistency that you needed, that you knew that you could get on the lake. And that's why it kind of was just left open. Like, yeah, there's fish there, but you're not going to win with it. But now, like you said, with the degrading water conditions and the more stable water up there, it's going to, I would 100% believe that those fish would migrate up there.
Yeah, but still, you look at Polinick, 95 pounds, and that's with a kind of weaker final day. 95 pounds wins you most tournaments on Okeechobee, even back when it was good.
Yeah.
So,
34 pounds for a 1-day bag. Although one guy was saying on live, they were saying like maybe these fish were moving up to spawn in that kind of area. Those were big, like looking like pre-spawn kind of fish, fat build. Maybe that's like spawning grounds for big ones.
Will Davis, like I said, was fishing, about a half a mile further up the canal, or I don't know exactly where he was, but he was in the same canal where the spillway was, but he was not encroaching.
He wasn't on the juice
stuff. And he caught 2 7-pounders, both on a bed.
Yeah.
On the last day.
Means they're moving up there, which means that they're moving there. You know what I mean? Because he saw the 1-to-1 there now.
Which is interesting to me because like these fish are choosing now to spawn on the bank of like a steep canal versus like what used to be like endless spawning, perfect spawning habitat out in that lake. So it's like with that loss of habitat and loss of grass, are these fish genuinely feeling like it's like are those 2 7-pounders that have always lived and always spawned up in that canal, or did their spawning place on the lake does it not exist anymore and they had to go into there?
I feel like they've always been there. I feel like they're very like, think about it. Like there are studies on Champlain where like fish that were caught from Thai dumped up into up north, they never spawned again. They would live and roam out their days, but they would never spawn again. I feel like they're so migratory to like their spawning grounds. Like I feel like if you threw that off, they wouldn't. I feel like these fish have been here, they've been spawning, but no one's really paid attention to it because the grass was always so good.
On normal conditions, though.
What was that, Zub?
On normal conditions. Not the fish will go back there every time because the conditions allow them to go back there, because the fish know, because they instinctively know that they need a certain amount of clarity, the certain amount of depth, the certain amount of, make sure that there's ample sunlight so their kids don't die. And right now, if they were taken 100 miles away, they roam out in the abyss and they went to their home, they're like, oh my God, my kids will die. Let me go somewhere my kids won't die that's close. And they could do whatever fish do. I'm not an aquatic biologist. I would say they'd follow that clean water.
Yeah, I mean, my normal bass fishing intuition would lean towards what Brennan is saying, which is like there's probably always been a good population of fish in these canals. But if that was true, forward-facing sonar or not, I don't understand how it's taken this long.
I mean, the lake was always. Think about how vast that lake is. I feel like everyone that shows up there is like, I'm running out to the lake and I'm going to fish grass. I'm not going to go fish Okeechobee, drive down to Okeechobee to go fish a canal and like run up to Kissimmee and like fish a spillway.
See,
I'm going to go punch.
In 2021, when I went to Lake Okeechobee, that's exactly what I did.
Ran right down to the grass?
No,
You went to a spillway?
I fished the fucking canal a lot. And I didn't have forward-facing sonar. But
I don't know.
My experience was more like what you usually hear, or what you used to hear about the canals was caught a lot of 2-pounders. But
when did you go? Was it this time of the year or was it? I wonder if it's just more of a spawning deal.
I've been
do a lot.
I've been more than once. I've been a few times, but all roughly in this realm of the year.
Maybe it's just a big spawning deal now with the water that they're really just moving in there to spawn and then they're going back to the lake. And
you have to remember, a Florida spawn isn't a northern spawn. The Florida spawn has been going on since November.
Yeah,
and they're going to go to April.
Probably. I mean, it's a little more, like we said, with the falling water and like the unstable conditions. It's a little more inconsistent than it used to be historically on Okeechobee. Like historically, you kind of set your watch to like, okay, you're going to start seeing your first beds at the end of November, and it's going to go all the way through March. But with the water falling so fast, like it seems like, or at least the word has been that over the past couple of months, most of the fish haven't like been able to really set up on beds because they go up there, they fan, and then they lose water and they get uncomfortable and they come off.
Right.
So it sounds like there hasn't really been like a huge, really good wave. I mean, I'm sure there's been some days where there has been, but not like, how it usually is where they're on the bed all the time.
No, Okeechobee is straight up edging the bass right now.
Yeah.
I said it.
And I mean, that speaks, into the concerns about the future of it's like, if you keep preventing like successful spawning seasons, like
what's going to happen to the population 5 years down the road?
Yeah, I mean, it looks okay right now if you just look at the numbers on the paper, but if you actually watch how the tournament went and how things are looking, what people are saying for the future, and the fact that like, these conditions only really started being like a major thing like 3 years ago. So it's like the existing population, they're
hitting their maturity.
They're not going to die because of these conditions, but they are going to consolidate and they are going to move and stuff. But once you start talking about, needing to fill in with the younger generations, like, how successful are the spawns up there compared to how they used to be?
How many are coming in to replace the old ones that are aging out?
Yeah. I don't know. Yet to be seen. Hopefully this is the end of the Okeechobee woes, because it started to come to a more stable height right now, and they're really pushing for them to keep it there. So who knows if that'll actually happen or not.
We'll find out.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk about with this tournament was just in the bass fishing world, kind of a super pleasant change of pace with like some unbelievably positive sportsmanship.
Oh my gosh.
Like
4 guys shoulder to shoulder having a ball, just going, just having a time.
when
No
they were
fighting, no screaming, no yelling.
when they were talking in that day 2 fog delay about how 4 guys in the top 10 were fishing the same spot, I was like, this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And it was everything but.
They had a system worked out, and they had no problem.
Couple locals were being a little unsportsmanlike, but that'll happen. You're gonna have that.
Yeah,
I feel like especially Florida locals.
I've talked about this ad nauseum. I don't think I've ever actually talked about this on the podcast. And this is yet another list in my long list of unpopular opinions and opinions that are persuaded, leaning heavily towards professional fishing. But like, if there is a Elite Series tournament on Lake Okeechobee, for 2 things. 1, just don't go out.
There's like how many other lakes in the state of Florida?
And 2, if you are going to go out, don't sit in the spot that the whole tournament is at. Like, listen, I get the whole argument. Oh, it's public water. You can do whatever you want. This, that, and the other. If you are fishing on Okeechobee is honestly a bad example because it's so big that it probably is very easy to just not fish near anybody. But on any lake, the most popular lakes in the country, you're gonna get 1, maybe 2 like professional caliber tournaments on that lake a year. Don't fucking go that weekend. If there is a Bassmaster Elite Series tournament on your lake and you go fishing on that lake while they're out here, you're a jerk off. I'm sorry. I don't care. You're a fucking asshole.
What's your take on watching? What's your take on watching? Stand in respectful distance.
That's
just
fine.
watching.
That's part of the sport. You're a spectator.
It's very easy to watch, and it's fine watching. But here's the rule about watching. Watching has a built-in barrier, right? It's self-explanatory because obviously you're going to probably want to be watching the winners, and those winners are going to have camera boats on them. Stay behind the camera boat. That's all you got to do. Stay next to or right behind the camera boat. So obviously I don't love when there's 30 boats following a guy sitting right behind him, because if you can't tell me that doesn't have an effect on the fish. It has to.
Turn your live scope off, at least.
Everybody's back there pinging. And I did wonder about that. I wonder if that started to have an effect on the spot, because you could tell the big fish were still there, and a guy like Polinick, who sat there for all 8 hours and eventually got him, would get him. But it's like when there started being a lot of boats clogging up that canal, all of a sudden you had to work really hard for him.
There's also a lot of noise there, and you have to remember, Polinick did, what did he catch, like a 3-pounder right in front of a guy, like boat kissing him pretty much.
Yep.
But no, I think it does take a toll. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I used to go to the Classic a lot. I remember we were following around Stetson Blaylock, and there was like 30 of us following around Stetson at the Classic. But he caught. Remember when he caught that like freaking 4-pounder on a mag draft or something, or on some type of line through? I bet he did a backflip off the freaking boat. Like
Oh,
it's just. You're
I
having
think-
fun.
fish in the nearby area just vacated on that splash.
What?
Yeah.
Al, what if you're targeting a different species 100 yards away? Is that okay? Like, say you're like
The crappie guys.
casting for stripers out in the middle of like Hartwell, or is that like firing squad still?
This sounds oddly specific. I wonder
I'm just curious, asking for a friend.
what you could be talking about. I don't know, man.
I feel like as a fisherman, you should maybe be like, hey, that's a pro tournament. Maybe I'll just striper fish.
I just feel like when there's especially at the Bassmaster Classic, there's a lot of other things you could be doing with your day.
I'm gonna go fall around, go cruise around and follow Stetson.
In 30-degree weather.
That was the classic on Hartwell. It was like 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the spectating is obviously like way better than like trying to fish on somebody's spot. I mean, there was a guy on day 4 like over Polinick's shoulder. There was like a center console with 3 guys chucking shiners into the middle. Like,
God,
I love that.
like that is
They
like,
reel in a 10-pounder.
that is like absolute dirtbag behavior.
no, that is absolutely pitiful.
What
Like,
do you
at the
think,
end of the day,
especially with all the spectators and camera boats and everything there? Like, what do you think all these people are here for?
Yeah. It's like, it's one thing if it's just like the first day, it's the guy by himself, one marshal on his boat, or the guy's even by himself, but like guys being filmed, big camera on the back, camera boats all around. Like,
you can't plead ignorance to that.
yeah.
know, even if you don't watch the Bassmaster Elite Series, even if you don't care about professional bass fishing or whatever, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But not
there's something going on.
Yeah.
It could be like even a TV show could be going on if you don't even understand what a tournament is. You can like still, you know.
I think it's an ego thing at the end of the day. I think it's just a guy saying, I can, and they can't stop me, and he's just flopping his dick out because he's a big dick.
Yeah.
I hate to talk like that, but that's the honest
that's-
truth. That's the honest truth. That's what
That's what it is most of the time, because you see the guys in the comments who are like, it's public water, I can fish wherever the fuck I want. You're an asshole.
You're an asshole. Yeah, you're a public asshole. You know,
You're
that's
a fucking jerk off. I'm sorry.
Yep.
There's no other way around it.
At the end of the day,
suck.
you're messing with some guy's paycheck at the end of the day, and like, go follow around, go have a good time. I'm a huge supporter of spectating. But I'm also a huge supporter of staying in your own lane. Don't fish or don't do anything that you would think or would, follow the crew. I remember when we went to the Classic, actually, and this is what happened. So we wanted to follow Christie, right? So did everybody else on Hartwell. Christie had all of his buddies come and block off the creek.
Good.
Can't blame them.
They made a whole lot. They had 3 boats in a line, and that said, please don't come back here. Christie doesn't want anybody around. I said, okay, cool. That's fine. Just be respectful. Don't do anything that you wouldn't want done to you.
You can't blame him for that, because that's what, like, especially at a place like Hartwell or like the Grand Classic when he had 1 million people following around. Like, when you're going into these creeks, like, especially if you're fishing docks or something and you want to come down and then go around and everything, like, you can't follow him in there, bro.
No, you can't.
Blow up the other docks.
Yeah.
I was listening to the Mercer podcast with it was Vandy and Polinick that he had on, and it was talking about how last year, I forget which lake they were at, how Polinick had, Vandy was following him filming, and Polinick was like, don't go on that bank, like stay in the middle, there's a 5-pounder on that bed, I'm coming back for it. And he said like 2 minutes later he just hears the trolling motor just blowing up the spot on the bed in the creek. He had like drifted over, but that's what happens when all those guys follow. They're just blowing out.
Also, in the Bass Live era, why are you even doing that?
Yeah, you could just follow a piece of your home.
Like, dude,
because Bass Live's all ads. Because Bass Live is 90% ads, and then I love Dave Mercer, but then there's a fucking halftime show.
It is
It's
brutal.
all
It is
The
brutal.
halftime show needs to go.
We can get into that in 1 second, but I just want to end this topic with like watching bass live for 8 hours can be kind of boring sometimes. Following one guy around on the water, like
For 8 hours.
that is just a complete waste of your time. Anyway, we got to talk about this halftime show.
It's got to go. It's got to go.
Dude, it's got to go.
And it's the time everybody has lunch break and can actually watch Bassmaster live. And I can't watch Bassmaster live.
It was actually funny on the 4th day. Mercer said during the halftime show, he's like, I've seen the comments, less talking, more fishing. And I was like,
yeah,
thank you. But then they still pegged Steve Bowman in the head with a bunch of jigs anyway.
Yeah, no, they were just pegging the producer. They're just flipping it into him.
It just
it goes on
after watching his prodigal son and just ripping into Bass Live for banning his son for that's a whole other thing. And he just starts bombing a jig at the producer.
Listen, I get that, like, you know, the guys. It's been happening for a few years now where they cut to Dave around noon because I'm assuming the guys in the studio have a quick little lunch break, pee break, whatever.
Yeah.
So I understand that's bad enough. It's bad enough just doing Bass Live, period, when you got to get to Dave Mercer. Making this whole halftime show spectacle, it just like
Nightmare.
It makes it 10 times worse.
Just have Dave Mercer and one pro or some guest and live in the background and them talking about it. Like
just show the fishermen and talk like you're an NFL commentator, Dave Mercer.
Yeah.
Just only describe what you're seeing. No opinions, no interjections. I don't want to hear any Dave Mercer jokes. None of it. I don't want to hear any of it.
And like I used to think that too, but like I don't know how many times can you say, "Oh, there he goes on the back." Oh yeah, the good roll cast on the spinner bait. Oh, there he goes, another flip.
I don't mind some talking, but I just want to see the fishing.
More fish. I want to see more fish, but I'd like to see a little breakdowns of what guys are doing, or just like opinions on how they're. I thought
the final day halftime show was not that bad, and I think there was a general consensus online. There must have been because somebody got to him because he said it out loud. But that I hope they like keep trimming it down because the first few days
it was long. It's like an hour.
Brutal. It was brutal. I had to turn it off. It's embarrassing. I didn't want anybody else to see me watching it. Like
yeah, it's bad enough that we're just sitting there watching a guy fish, but like we're watching a guy flip a fake lure at some other guy's head.
Dude, it's
for like an hour.
Yeah, but like I said, on the final day it wasn't that bad, so hopefully they address this. The other thing that needs to be addressed, and another thing that needs to go.
Oh no.
I think you all know where I'm going with this. I only said it 8,000 times this weekend. That bass to billfish guy was he was the worst.
No, dude had no idea what he was talking about. Like,
bro.
And
is he brought in just to bring viewers? Like viewership?
No, he had to be a corporate sponsor buyout or something like that. You know, we're just Bums Talk Bass is off the hook. We don't have anybody to impress. Fuck it. He was a corporate buyout for some reason to promote his show. That was a fucking ad the whole time. And he better just be his show should just be to billfish because he had no jack.
No, he was like the typical like fresh salt multi-species fisherman who like knows that first like 30% about bass fishing and thinks that he's
Absolutely.
like as good as it as like the pros were. Like he was referencing like times he's been to, like he was like, oh well, you know, he hasn't caught a big fish yet. You know, when I went to Okeechobee, we caught 2 7-pounders in 20 minutes, and blah, 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 blah. And the guy has no fucking clue what he's talking about.
Oh, it's like I know the first 30% about fucking NFL football, but you don't want to hear me with fucking Chris Collinsworth. Like that's just not how this works. Like, don't,
Dude.
why
Yeah.
not?
It's like
It's the only
dropping just
thing I
the
look forward
average.
to.
The guy was severely underqualified,
And
and
then like it's just an embarrassment. It's
yeah,
embarrassing to listen to that.
I don't know why we can't just have an ex-pro. I mean, take a freaking MLF guy in there. I don't know. I like anyone but him.
well,
Dude, put Rick on.
Yeah, I would get Rick back in there.
Here's the thing. It's one thing to have somebody who's a little underqualified if they're like extremely entertaining or like funny or like has something to offer. Nothing against him. Like he seemed like a nice enough guy. I'm sure he's a good guy. He's incredibly underqualified for what he was
He's
doing.
just not cutting it.
He would
I would
say-
rather like Deion Sanders or Shane Gillis. I don't know.
Shane Gillis.
he just said so many things that I'm listening to him and just going,
That makes no
What?
fucking sense.
what? Like it sounded like it sounded like trying to talk to like your buddy's dad who hunts and fishes about the tournament. It sounded like talking to that guy.
It's you going down the bank talking to the cat fisherman under the bridge, talking about a fishing tournament.
Yeah, it was like he knows fishing. He knows what he's talking about more than Joe, but he's not a tournament bass fisherman.
Yeah.
He's not a tournament analyst. He's not someone you want to listen to. And like that's all. I don't know if I want to keep ripping into him because I could really rip into him. I could rip into a lot of things. I could even rip into. I could even say it. Screw it. I'll just start with this. I miss him. You know who I miss.
We're never gonna fill those shoes.
I miss Mark Zona so
I
bad.
miss him so much, dude. And like I said, again, nothing against this guy personally because a Mark Zona is impossible, and that might really be it. Like you might not. All right, that's definitely not totally all it, but
Zono's a different person. You're never gonna fill his
anybody
shoes
on there, and it's gonna be like, well, he's not Zona though.
Yeah.
Like he was the perfect mix of like unbelievably charismatic, funny, entertaining, and also
And
an
beyond
expert
knowledgeable.
level bass fisherman. Like he had everything for that job, and not having him, obviously you saw it a lot. He wasn't on every tournament. He was here, he was there, but usually he would at least call in for a little bit and you'd get a bit of him. I mean, they had Davey on location. That's a waste.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that. Fly him out for 30 seconds a day? Like it's just
that's a waste. Put Mercer. Well, they have that Kyle Jesse guy there now too. So put Mercer with Kyle Jesse's. Them two can handle the halftime show by themselves. Have Davey in studio be the third chair. Davey's not perfect. He's definitely not Mark Zona, but he's way better than what we got this.
He knows what he's talking about.
Of knowledge.
Yeah, he's an expert level bass fisherman who can actually analyze what's going on.
Yeah,
exactly. They need to whatever contract they need to do. They need to bring back Kevin. Tell him he can promote his show. Kevin would be great. I think. I don't know. Kevin's weird, but Kevin would be. He's the GOAT. I would listen to Kevin. Listen to Kevin
I want Ronnie relegated back to the screen of knowledge. And I want the Tommy Sanders, Kevin Van Dam, Mike Iaconelli booth.
Mike Iaconelli, forced retirement into the studio.
Get in the studio, buddy.
I'd love Ike in the studio.
I mean, I love Ike. I
Beats
still want to
reaction.
see him compete and everything. But
He would be a good personality
whenever
for the
he does
studio.
hang it up, I would love to see him give that a shot. I think he would be good.
Yeah.
I think he'd be just about as close as you could get. He wouldn't be the same as Zona, but he would be as close as you could get in like he's actually like funny and entertaining on top of being an expert in the field.
A big personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the next. He's the only other one I can think of, like just off the top of my head, who I feel like could come close.
Yeah. Yeah, there's really no one else that's like as loud or funny or odd that like stands out, especially near retirement age.
They should have had Scott Martin all week because he had nothing better to do. They could have brought on Matt Herron because he had nothing better to do.
I'm sure it was painful enough for Scott Martin to do his one little hit. I don't think Scott would have been super down to do the entire weekend.
4 days of live on his own body of water.
Yeah, I don't think he would really love that.
I still think that
though.
on live to be a part of his Bass Illuminati initiation. That was his humiliation ritual, so he could join the Bass Illuminati. Like I don't know if he's gonna have a Bass Pro Shop deal after this or what, but like, I don't know. Pain.
Yeah, not the best.
Quick Scott question now. Was Scott in the main lake or the canal? Where was
neither.
Scott fishing?
Neither, Zoom. He was not fishing. I mean, we did our quick little hit on Instagram where we covered the topic, but we'll dive into it a little more long form. Scott Martin did not fish this tournament.
R.I.P.
And Zub, your summation in our instant reaction was unfortunate but deserved. Do you still feel this way?
Honestly, yeah. I'm still there. And I mean, I hate to say it, Liz, like, it sucks. It happens. You're in that environment. I think maybe they need to work on the rule, but the rule stands and the rule is what it is. At the end of the day, you're a professional angler and you got to hold yourself to that standard.
But listen, I think even if you change the rule, and I think there's something that does need to be changed to the rule and have it structured better. Like you can't penalize guys for receiving information that they didn't ask for. But even if you made that rule change, Scott Martin still gets DQ'd because he asked a question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where it all falls apart. I said that in the little clip we did, but that's where it falls apart. If a guy comes to the shop and starts talking about bass fishing and you didn't ask for it and you get that information, right? I think it's very, very, very unfair to DQ somebody for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Scott followed up and asked a water clarity question. And that's not receiving information. That is soliciting information.
Yeah.
That's what that is. And was it going to help him win the
tournament?
Doubtful. Probably not. Would it have affected anything? Almost certainly not. But
did it anyway.
How are you going to make that? How are you going to make that distinction? How are you going to be able to say what conversation is worthy of a DQ and what conversation isn't? Yeah. Is there going to be a master list of people you're not allowed to talk to? And
anybody at this status level or higher?
I'll leave this open interpretation.
It's
how many
bad.
people had that conversation
again,
this week,
the only thing about it that really gets me is that, like, I just hope, and I know the answer to this is that they're not, but I hope that all of the guys across the board have as much sportsmanship and integrity as Scott and are being honest about this kind of stuff, because I would imagine there's probably at least 10 competitors in this tournament who did
similar
what Scott did to considerably worse than what Scott did, and fished this tournament, came out the other side, and nothing happened.
Oh, for sure.
I would bet this crankbait right here that at least 5 anglers had the same caliber conversation as Scott or worse and said absolutely nothing and receive absolutely no punishment because they didn't say anything. Scott thought he was going to win. Scott thought he was going to be in the top 10. Scott thought he was going to get a polygraph, and he tried to come out honorable. And I guess I didn't listen to what he said on whatever when he had his segment. He said anything like that.
Nothing really different. He didn't really say anything different than what he said in his post.
Just that he messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, it is tough because, like, your first instinct is just like, oh, yeah, what's it look like down there? But shot himself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, he said he wasn't even thinking about the tournament when he asked the question, like it just slipped and it happened. I'm totally willing to believe him in that. I don't think he was doing it intentionally to like get information on the lake and gain a competitive advantage, but
you just talk about it. That's
you can't
discredit it.
You can't judge intention.
Yeah.
Like, when you're talking about rules and in a court of law, it's black and white. I'm sure Scott wasn't doing it on purpose, but you can't. There's no way to know for sure. Yeah. And if you don't police it like that for him, then you can't police it like that for anybody. So,
and I guess we'll never know. Just like where he's fishing, I guess we'll never know. But there is one thing we do know, and I'm going to do a quick little update on everything.
At the 47-minute mark. Perfect timing.
Ass at fantasy fishing. I am so bad. Beat Zub is the easiest thing in the world because you did. A lot of people did. And I believe who's number one, Al? Who is it?
It is Benny Brown.
Benny Brown, good work. You beat Zub. Not hard to do at all. Benny Brown, here are the rules in case you missed it. And if you're watching, thank you. So we are doing weekly prizes. Benny Brown, you are a weekly winner. Congratulations. What do you win? You win the winning bait. The winning bait this week is a Mega Bass crankbait. Ooh, this is a Norris crankbait. Ooh. You're going to get a Mega Bass crankbait. It's going to be cool. You're going to be like sick. But you're like, wait, I won? How do you know I won? Well, you got to do some work yourself, Benny Brown. You got to, first of all, DM the keyword Big M. The keyword is Big M. BIG space M. Benny Brown, that is your keyword. And you need to DM that to the Bumps Talk Bass Instagram account. And you need to also go ahead.
I do want to say this is only week 2, so I think it's all right. But moving forward, we need to not make the keyword just what the bait is, because people are going to figure out that that's the keyword.
Well, it's just gonna get a little more baits. I could have said crankbait. It's I'm using Big M. It's specific, but yeah, I agree. But this week we're going with Big M. Yeah.
Also, shout out to Andrew Anuzzi, my boy, breathing down Benny's throat in second place, a hammer in fantasy fishing and in real life. So I'm sure I'm going to be forced to give him a bait at some point. And also, shout out to our reoccurring guest, Andre.
Oh, he's up there?
Managing to post maybe the lowest fantasy score I've ever seen in my life. I didn't even know that it was possible to have a score that started with a 5, but Andre had 585 points. And he didn't leave Scott Martin in. Every person on his team actually fished.
Damn. They all ended up in 80th and below?
well, he picked Chris Zaldane, who finished last.
Yeah, that's great.
Hate to see that.
something that's very hard to do is to get a bucket A pick to finish as low as 86th. But Corey
Yeah.
Johnston pulled that one off for him. He also had Steve Kennedy, who I believe was down in the 80s. It was just all
Abysmal.
time. All time.
Well, Andre, I have good news for you because you can also be a winner on the Bums Talk Bass Fantasy Fishing Group. That's right. So if you also, just for funsies, are listening to this and you submit a screenshot saying you subscribe to Bums Talk Bass to our Instagram and you send the keyword big, and you're the first one to do it, you get a crankbait too. Fuck it. You get a crankbait. You get a crankbait. Everybody gets a crankbait. But you got to subscribe and you got to listen. And we're not going to.
He's typing in right now.
Andy Zaff is going to win that crankbait. He's our most loyal viewer.
He even comments on our stuff.
Well, you know what? Andy deserves a crankbait.
He texts. He'll text me like through the episode as he's watching, like right after we drop it.
I love that.
Like he'll just like interject his opinions at like the 14-minute mark.
That's great. Like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah.
If the Classics won on a glide, I'm going to kill myself. But it's fine.
Yeah, and that's a scary one for it too.
Yeah, that's possible.
Listen, a Big M crankbait is already probably more expensive than we expected this to ever get.
Yeah, I did. I was prepared.
So put in overtime for this week.
All I'll say is, thank God Polinick only pulled that boss out once.
Yeah.
Imagine all week.
If he caught a few more fish on that thing, we could have had a big problem.
The viewers would be.
I have it right here. The winning crank already shipped in from Hamakatsu, Japan. Big M crank. Oops. Big M crankbait. Definitely not an aftermarket Storm Wiggle award.
Not even close to a Big M, but
that's a unique bait. I could dive into that, but that's a really unique bait that I don't know.
The Big M
or the Wiggle.
We might as well talk about it because I do want to talk about some actual fishing, and it's a good transition point off of Okeechobee. I don't own any. I've never thrown one. I know a lot about a lot of megabass baits. This is not one I'm familiar with. I heard them talk about it on Bass Live, but I heard Ronnie and Bass to Bumfish talk about it, so I
have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, so I didn't get anything out of that. They were talking about melting a jerk bait and a crankbait and something else together, and you get this. And I was like, that's just not at all what it is.
So that's what it actually, they say it kind of is on the Megabass website, but that's a rough Japanese translation. It's a really rough Japanese translation.
It's all lost.
So the way I like to think about a Big M is, you know what guys don't throw a lot of anymore? Oversized square bills. Like, a real big, freaking KVD 4.0, 5.0. You know what I'm talking about, Al?
Tell Frank Appaluccio that, because when we went to the national championship on Grand Lake, Frank Appaluccio caught a 6-pounder on a KVD 7.0.
Yeah, because guys don't throw them anymore.
What was Paul? It was a Big M, but what, 4.0, the 7.5?
4.0, I think.
Yeah,
so just like a long, big-bodied square bill kind of vibe.
So this is where it takes its action off, because they have the big square bill megabass, and they have the shallow version. This one actually dives deeper. This one dives, I believe, 12 feet. I don't know the specifics on the model.
Depth,
I think it's down to 12.
It dives a lot deeper than it looks like it should.
No, because it's. So do you guys know what a flap slap is?
That's an expensive thing.
So the flap slap is the megabass interpretation of a shad wrap.
Oh, no. Yes, I do know what that is.
Actually,
I commonly refer to it as the mega shad.
No.
Which is not its real name, but
lost a drop shot bait. It's all right. I think I have her in here. This box is so cold.
Yeah, it's looking a little frosty in there, Zub.
Yeah, my heater just hasn't worked at all today.
By the
No,
way,
it's-
I just looked up the Big M on Tackle Warehouse. They're all gone.
Of course. They're
Yeah, I
sold
know.
out last night.
It's fine. I already had them ordered from my other sources.
Zub, do you know what color he was throwing?
He was throwing honestly like a white one.
Like a shad kind of
Little white
vibe.
and chartreuse action. Well, anyway, I can't seem to find it. But the
It just
flap
doesn't
slap
look
is like a
big.
shad wrap, and they have a diving flap slap, which gets down there a little deeper. And this is just a blown up version. So it has a really tight wobble, basically. So I mean,
This-
yeah, you could jerk
the
it,
Big
but
M
really,
has it?
Yeah, it's got
good, like,
the Big M has pretty flat sides to it.
Yeah,
doesn't
I was
it?
gonna say it looks like a very
really
flat-sided.
really
I
tight
feel like
wobble.
that's not a tight. That's kind of like a wide, not wide, but I don't know. It's like a slow, like boom, boom, boom.
It moves exactly like it should. Jesus Christ! This dropped all my spy baits.
I feel like a tight wobble would be like a DT, where it's just rapid back and forth.
Right,
This
which
kind of
was
goes
very
like
similar to the prototype crank he was throwing.
Yeah, but I think like compared to like KVD 7.0, for example, which is it's gonna, it's a big, wide
Yeah,
wobble, very aggressive. Those flat sides are going to make it more of a this than a this.
just
Yeah.
kind of a slower.
Like I said, I've never fished a Big M, so I don't know at that scale what it does. But when you're talking about like a regular crankbait and a flat side crankbait of the same size, your flat side is always going to have more of this as compared to this.
Yeah. But the thing with
Like-
that big M is that he was doing it on like a burn and pause retrieve, from what I saw.
Yeah,
He
I
wasn't
saw
doing
a
anything
lot
crazy.
of
It looks like it's got a decent
I s-
float up to it. Like a,
I
I'm
saw a
looking
lot
at
of
a video of it.
similar. I saw a lot of similar retrieves with the multiple crankbaits Brandon was using, and also with the crankbait Greg was throwing.
Which was
Where-
a Nomad
where-
design something.
Yeah, it's a Nomad design deep diving crankbait, but he was doing a lot of that, like, which I don't know if your guys are familiar with. It's a big Florida thing. It's usually more of like a shell bed type of thing, but bring that crankbait down, and then when it hits the bottom, like pausing, but then sweeping your rod and like digging it down into there,
Huh.
like you almost
Just
want to like
kicking up crap.
yeah, you're almost like slamming it into the bot, like you're almost trying to break it off,
Jesus.
like
Just to what, stir up and like get like debris kicked up, like make it get feeding for like get.
I don't know what was on the bottom specifically there, but I do know that that's a big like Florida shell bar thing.
I
where
would
you just
definitely
want
say
that
it was a shell
bill
bar.
just grinding up shells.
Found it.
Interesting. Wonder if it
I
gets
don't
the big fish rolling.
And I mean, I saw specifically on, if you look at the late day 3 big one that Greg caught, you can see very clearly that he was doing that like sweep, dig,
Right.
crank, stop,
Let it
sweep,
float up. Let it
dig,
suspend.
crank, stop, sweep, dig, like, and that's what he called that fish. And I saw Polinick in multiple instances doing that same type of retrieve with, I guess, really both of the crankbaits that he was throwing.
And that's where, but here's the thing, he brought up that big M because that's where the jerk bait aspect of it has it, where it's going to have that nice roll to suspend and kick out, where it's going to sit parallel in the water after it kicks out, after you have that burn and pause retrieve. You're not going to like walk the dog and jerk it, but it's good for like a speed cranking.
Yeah.
So that brings me into my question, because I genuinely don't know. Like I said, I've never fished this bait. Does this bait have any application in not Florida or Texas?
Probably.
I'm throwing one March 30th on the flats.
Same kind of. I mean, that kind of reminds me. I
13
mean,
feet of
besides
water?
Outside marinas in Harv.
what, that one rock wall.
Couple different deeper areas.
Yeah. I just wonder what the realistic application is.
I don't know, anywhere you have a bigger profile bait. To be
Any kind
honest.
of
Yeah, I guess.
hard
Perch, I
spot
mean,
that you could find.
I used to have a good one that I throw on Cayuga a lot down grass lines. These are when they're eating on big perch. But you know what else eats big perch?
Pike.
Bigger
Pickerel.
pike. Bigger pike.
Yeah, pike.
But no, that was a good application there. Just anywhere you're doing your mid-depth cranking. I think it's just if you have, it's a gizzard imitator, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere you have gizzards, I feel like it would be a really good application.
Yeah.
Gizzards perch.
I could see like
forage. Grand.
people throwing them on
They'd
Pickwick
smoke
and
it on
stuff.
Grand.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know? And it
Down
doesn't
those
always
big
have to be the
gravel
big
banks.
M 4.0 when you're in that specific situation. You could get the shallower big M. They have the 2.0 and the 3.0 that don't dive as deep. You know?
Or you could get the 7.5.
And just
KVD
grind.
7.5. The big M
No,
7.5.
the big M 7.5 that goes 24 feet deep.
Yeah, guys deep crank with that and winter crank with that, I know, down south. And like, I thought about doing it this year, but it gets too cold too fast.
Yeah, our speed cranking window up here is like 4 days.
Yeah.
Not
Or it's
great.
filled with snot grass.
Yeah.
I guess I get to.
Here's another question that you guys probably both won't have the answer to. Do we know what ridiculous variation of live scope bait Koyo was throwing?
No clue.
You want me to throw it out there?
Sure.
Jackal King Jimmy Henge
Jackal King Jimmy Hedge
is the weirdest name you'll ever see, but thought I saw it on his deck.
Well, seeing it on his deck is different.
We'll see if he, we'll see if he covers it or not. If he's a little sneaky boy like Mr.
Here's
Mud
the
said.
thing about Koya.
Have you looked it up?
How do you spell it?
He's sponsored by Jackal.
Henge.
But he also throws a lot of OSP.
Is this like a dice? It looks like a dice.
Style bait. It's a dice, but it imitates basically a bunch of very small fry.
Oh, that's stupid looking.
He's sponsored by Jackal. And for the past 2 years, every time he performs good on a tournament, he says he was throwing the drift fry the whole time and has multiple rods on his front deck with the drift fry rigged up, and he is absolutely not throwing it.
Well, except on Toledo Bend. He caught all his fish on the drift fry in Toledo Bend. Not all of them, but there was a lot of fish in his net. There were a lot.
That is less true than you think it is.
There were a lot in his mouth. I know he's throwing a lot of different things.
Yes, but here's what happened. When he did actually catch one on that, mouth in the camera, check it out. Oh, take a look.
All the other ones.
He only did that once.
I don't know. This Jackal thing looks kind of funky.
I'll look it up. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
It is stupid.
I can tell you, I did see
$5.
him do. I've seen it. I know what it is. I did see him do the old.
Oh yeah, every time
out, throw it in the water,
right in the drink.
Yeah. So
I'm just gonna go start throwing just little rubber balls of like used up plastics. Just throw it out there, see what happens. Something
I
stupid.
started.
I have so many dice. I just have
I
dice everywhere.
I created my own fuzzy dice last year by
What? Just a piece of Senko stuff with.
cutting up stick bait and then feathering pieces of silicone through it. And I, without being too specific, because this is, I'm not even going to get into why, because that might give it away. Without being too specific, I did use those fuzzy dice that I made to catch multiple keepers in major tournaments last year.
I remember you throwing that one time.
It's the
Yeah,
profile.
that's one of the places where I don't want to mention it, and you know why. But yeah, I did it. I did, and I have. I don't know if this is what everybody is doing, but I have totally figured out an application for it.
Yeah.
There is a specific bite situation where it has worked multiple times for me on multiple different bodies of water.
Are you throwing it weightless, weighted? What are you doing?
So I do two different versions of it. I do a small one, which is more of like the regular
Yeah.
dice, where it's just a like cube with the silicone through it. That, more often than not, I am throwing either weightless if it's shallow, or I am wrapping a suspend strip around
Oh, yeah.
my
That's
to just give it a little bit of weight. Now there's
Suspend
another
strip.
one I do where I do a slightly longer section of a Senko, like maybe like a 2-inch section of Senko. So it's like, it's not totally like a square. It's like a little
Little log.
tube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is the one I will fish when I want it to sink a little faster, or I'm fishing it slightly deeper. That I will thread a hook through the middle, usually like a Nico style hook.
Mm-hmm.
I'll thread in the middle and have it come out the top, and then I'll put a nail weight in it.
Okay.
Like a
Let it drop
little,
down.
like, anywhere from a 1/64th to like a 16th ounce nail weight. I'll push into that, and your section is about the same length as your nail weight is going to be.
Yeah.
So you kind of push that nail weight all the way through, and then you're evenly weighted. So it's going to fall horizontally.
Yeah. Just dripped right down.
I'll
So
keep it simple.
Those are the two ways I do it.
I go, well, first of all, I thread everything nowadays. A lot of basic drop shot baits, Ned rig baits, just a little extra flair.
Mm-hmm.
I have buddies that live up in New York, and they won't throw a bait that doesn't have some threading on it, even just drop shotting it. But weightless, if you're in your shallower conditions, Nico rig with a very, very small nail weight. And if you wanted to get down there a little more, then drop shot if you're deep. I think, very simple applications on it.
It's also,
this
isn't something I have done yet, but I've seen a lot of guys throw it with like a very light free rig weight.
That too.
Okay, yeah. I can see that.
Definitely a way to do it, like a, I don't know, really small 1/4 ounce free rig rate.
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely different ways to do it, but basically, what I'm trying to do is get away with putting as little weight in it as I can. And if I am putting weight in it, I'm trying to do it in a way that doesn't like affect the way the bait falls. Like I said,
Yeah.
if you keep that little section about the same length as that nail weight, then you can thread it from the front to the back and you're going to be perfectly evenly weighted. So, if you were to put it on like a little jig head or something, it's going to fall like this, which I don't want it to do. I want it to stay, I want it to fall like a wacky rig Senko. But like,
absolutely,
it's a fucking.
No, in my opinion, that bait has to be in that strike zone for the slowest and most optimal amount of time possible. And you need to let the current of the water move the phalanges, and that just has to marinate. You can't let it sink too fast, can't let it sink to the ground. It just has to suspend perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's unrealistic to throw it like totally weightless in every situation, but you want to get away with as minimum weight as you can.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at least. So like I a lot of time, like I buy the little nail. I buy for a variety of reasons. One, just being cost, and like you're ridiculous if you're buying tungsten nail weights because they just fall out of the bait. But
oh no, if you buy
Yeah.
tungsten well, there's no reason. You're not getting any contact, you're not saving any density. And you don't need that small of a nail weight. You just you need the lightest weight possible.
I think it's actually a negative because
absolutely
what I do with my nail weights is I'll usually buy like an 1/8 ounce
Break it down
lead
into a bunch of
nail
pieces.
weight, and that's the only size you need to buy, because if you want to go smaller, you just snap a section off.
Yep.
So,
and it's easier to stab that than tungsten.
yeah, so like even if I want to get a little bit more weight than that suspend strip on that original square size dice, I'll just snap the tip
Yeah.
off of a nail weight and just stick it right in the middle of it. Or also if I'm fishing that longer version and I just want it to fall slower, I'll snap it in half and stick that in the middle of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
But
that's the only way to fish nail weights. I just buy one size nail weight. Just cut it down to whatever I need.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to do it.
I bought like 100 pack of the cheapest 1/8 ounce nail weights that Amazon could offer.
Yes.
And
that is the only way to do it.
$3 in the mail.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, that's like when I bought a 2,500 count of bobber stoppers off of wish.com 4 years ago.
Still going through them
for like $10, and I am still using them to this day.
You'll still be using them for another couple of years.
Yeah, I have plenty left.
There is one thing that sometimes I do.
You do?
Oh.
I do.
Sometimes I do.
Sometimes I do. I do have tungsten nail weights in the box. I use them for one specific reason. And sometimes if I'm going to go straight up hover rig emitter and I want some more weight in a small, say I throw the French fry a lot. I throw the OSP Mylar a lot. And in those baits, they actually have pre-cut holes for you to put a tungsten weight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put too long of a nail weight, I don't know. I like having the heavy weight in there sometimes just to try and get it down there just a little more if I don't want to put it right on a jig head. But I'm learning just to throw it on a jig head now. I think it's just as efficient. There's certain situations now where, like, if you're fishing shallow brush from like 5 to 7 feet, a lighter piece of tungsten just to, the whole thing is you only have so much room in that cavity.
Yeah.
And you don't want to put too much of a nail weight in there because you'll destroy that cavity.
Yeah.
So that's why I have a couple in there. But that's really it. It's the only reason I ever bought them. Because they're so expensive for no reason.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just expensive.
That's the only really niche reason to ever buy tungsten ones.
Yeah,
and you don't have to.
I don't really, and I don't know what you guys think about this. I don't really buy any tungsten weights besides like bullet weights, like in like punching weights.
I have some from Drop Shot, but that's just because I get them at a discount and they're about the same. But I don't even use them for like normal drop shotting. Like I'll use them for like the power shot if I'm like flipping it. But like anywhere I'm even gonna come remotely close to like losing it, it's not getting tied on.
I
And then
always
tungsten jigs, like actual jigs, I'll have.
like I have always used just like the cheapest lead drop shot weights that
Oh yeah,
you can get on Tackle Warehouse because like
Oh yeah.
the little
I
cylinder.
break a million of them off, and I don't understand what a tungsten drop shot weight is doing for me.
Well,
9 times
the
out of
whole
10.
thing is, in my opinion. So if you're drop shotting around grass or around shallow sparse cover, doing a shallow little drop shotting through a brush pile or something where you know what your solid cover is, if you are throwing tungsten, you are burning money and lighting it on fire. If you are throwing tungsten where you're drop shotting grass, you are lighting money on fire. If you're drop shotting a dot post, you are lighting money on fire. Drop shotting brush, anything like that, lighting money on fire. Also, piping hot take, drop shotting on the St. Lawrence with tungsten, lighting money on
That'd be a wild move.
burning it. So
And listen,
back in the day before live scope, though, tungsten, the clear advantage of it, you're getting that better bottom contact. And sometimes that's good if you're on like a rock pile, you're trying to fish that hard to soft edge, something like that. That's it. That's the only time.
See, you guys know, you two know this very well. Everybody listening might not know this about me. I'm not afraid to set money on fire when it comes to fishing. If I think that a bait will catch me 1% more fish, I will pay triple the amount for it.
Yeah.
But I don't see a reason why a tungsten drop shot weight helps me. The only argument I've ever heard was that argument that you just gave, Zub, with the bottom contact. But like, I've never found that to be an issue. I can, with a lead weight, I can totally tell what I'm on.
What rod are you using?
I mainly drop shot with a G Loomis E6X.
Well, that's a great rod. And I mean, here's the thing. That's not an NRX. The E6X is phenomenal drop shot stick.
I do have an NRX too. I do have an NRX also, but I use the NRX for like live scoping baits, not drop shotting. I like the way specifically the old, and it sucks because it doesn't exist anymore, but I got a couple of them. I love the way the old E6X drop shot rod fights a fish. When you actually hook a fish on that rod, it is probably the best like landing percentage of any drop shot rod I've ever
couldn't agree more. That was the first rod I ever bought, actually. Like, first nice rod I ever got was E6X drop shot rod.
Same. Like, are you gonna be more sensitive with that NRX? Oh, for sure. But like I said, similar to like the tungsten versus lead,
is it really making it?
I don't feel like I need it. I can feel everything good enough with the E6X. Like, I'm never sitting there holding the rod and being like, am I on a rock? Like, I can tell. I know. I can feel it fine enough. So what am I supposed to feel it even more? Like, whatever.
You should feel every crevice on that rock.
Like, rock. If you're throwing on chunk rock or something or a rock pile, you're going to feel it. You'll feel it if you have a freaking, Cast King or something. Not to shout out Cast King, but like, I don't know, if you have a piece of junk. Not saying Cast King is a piece of junk. There goes the sponsor. Whatever.
That's fine.
Whatever. But no, if you have a piece of junk rod, screw it. No, Cast King, you're fine. Shout out Travis Hunter. No.
Ugly Sticks.
No, Ugly Sticks gas. Who can we burn?
Don't
Garcia?
burn any. You already burned it. You didn't
Okay.
recover it by that
Okay.
last sentence. That was there was no recovery there. Don't burn another one.
Well, you know why I said casting? Because I don't think they make rods. They definitely don't make rods.
They definitely do. They
I
got
don't
it.
know.
No way they make rods. I guess we'll never know.
Anyway,
if you're on a
my
rock pile,
point
you'll feel it.
is, I think I'm getting more. I think my advantage gap is greater with the fish fighting capability of the E6X versus the NRX than the advantage gap is with the sensitivity of the E6X versus the NRX. I feel like I lose way more fish drop shotting with the NRX than I do with the E6X.
Is that what you used to drop
Just
shot
broke
on the
it.
bay that one year?
No, actually, I had 2 drop shots rigged up, and the second rod wasn't even actually a drop shot rod. And I broke that first one that I broke off was on the E6X. And then those 2 that I lost were on the other rod because I just picked that rod up and didn't retie.
Gotcha.
So that's what happened that also, like 12 dock cables is what happened that day. But
yeah, you get that on those big jobs.
yeah, that was tough.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll just lead for everything except for like, flipping a nice bullet weight. Then you get a nice little tungsten.
Yeah, I mean, I like tungsten for that because one, that's
More compact.
that's an application where the size does matter, especially when you're talking about like punching. Like you physically could not do.
Imagine a 2-ounce lead weight.
Yeah, you could not do the technique of punching if tungsten wasn't a thing. It
Freaking bunker buster.
Yeah, it would not be possible. And also, like, it's not a type of weight you're really breaking off that often unless you're like throwing Texas rigs into brush piles and stuff. But like that's just what you get. You can't with a clean conscience throw a lead bullet weight because you're putting your line through it and they get like dented and the holes close up and you squeeze the like you can't a drop shot weight or a nail weight is like whatever.
It's not touching your line.
My drop shot weight got dented. Who cares?
Yep.
A weight sliding on your line, we can't have that happening.
Yeah.
What about like a tungsten Carolina rig weight, huh?
I use mainly brass.
Oh, a clanking guy.
Get a little bead on there.
Yeah, I'll usually go swivel, 1 red bead, brass clanker. But no, I actually have a couple of tungsten and a couple of lead Carolina rig weights. I don't mind using a lead Carolina rig weight because that's gonna be after the swivel, which most of the time means it's gonna be on braid.
No, that makes sense.
Which I don't care about.
You already have max contact.
Yeah.
I do have some of the drop shot ones for the free weight in tungsten, just because it's like I feel like the eyelid's a little cleaner.
But if I'm going fluorocarbon to fluorocarbon on the Carolina rig, then I will throw the tungsten if I don't want the clack. If I want the clack, I'm throwing brass. If I don't want the clack, I'm throwing tungsten, but you're still getting more of a clack out of tungsten than you are out of the lead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if I really, really want the no clack,
go lead.
Then I'll go to lead. But if I'm going to go to lead, then I have to go to braid on the main line and then fluorocarbon leader.
We need to have a Carolina rig episode.
I needed an opportunity
Yeah, I
to
guess
throw
so.
a rig in the general vicinity.
I'm definitely not a Carolina rig expert, but
We need a 2-hour Carolina rig segment. I just like lead drop shot weights around shallow cover because when I send a lead drop shot weight at Mock Jesus into somebody's boathouse, it's at least
Into the-
10 and not have as much of an impact. Whereas the tungsten shell will definitely chip a window.
yeah.
Nothing like a pontoon hitting tungsten at 7 a.m.
Nothing like my freaking tungsten Kitech jig shattering into a million shrapnel pieces off the first skip off a dock post.
The worst.
The worst.
Hate to see it when it happens.
Yeah, that's the downfall of tungsten jigs around dock.
Yeah. Big old crack.
I hope I don't have to give this thing away.
What the hell is that?
The flap slap. Now you can see they have a similar balancing
Uh.
system in this that they have with the Big M, where they actually have tungsten inside the bait. It doesn't move. It's just held in there with a bar to keep it at that right suspend level.
Huh.
Right? I'm excited to
Alex
see
is going to go by 5 tonight.
the Megabass DT10 come out. I'm very
Hey,
excited for
speaking
that.
of which, I knew we had a tougher season last year. Polinick's not fishing the Classic, huh?
Nope.
47.
Not until 2026.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no. It's
Didn't he have like
wild.
15 straight years of the Classic or something like
I was
that?
gonna say, is that the first time he's missed it besides like, when he
First time
wasn't
he's
there?
missed it. First time he's ever missed it, I think.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
pretty sure.
he did miss it one year,
Didn't he fish it because he fished for 1 year, but he had qualified? I guess he missed the one because he couldn't requalify.
I'm assuming he missed the year after.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of threading everything, here's a
Unless
There's a
actually,
bad-
was that the year
there's a-
he won the Open on the James? Because then maybe he
Maybe.
did make it.
oh
No?
Yeah.
no, he had a good season that year, I think.
What I'm referencing is he fished at MLF for 1 year,
Yeah.
so he couldn't have made it.
I forgot that happened.
Unless he won
I
the
like to
Open.
erase
that
that from my memory.
Yeah, so unless he won the Open that
He
year,
did. I think he won the I think he won the Open that year.
that's what I'm saying. It's a similar time frame. Let me see. James
As
River.
the Paul and a cat wear, I should know this.
He won in 2021. Is that the year he fished again?
2021.
Yeah.
Okay, so Major League Fishing BPT 2021 roster. No, that would have been after.
2020
He
was
fished.
then?
He only fished the first year of it, so which was
What's
like
that?
2019, I think.
Yeah. Sounds right.
So yeah, he had to miss it 1 year.
Well, now he missed it 2 years, so at least he didn't
But
have break that.
he's made it every time he was fishing events that he could qualify for it.
Yeah.
Until last year.
Until
Rough.
till now.
Well,
Damn
let's
kids.
see him bounce back. Because I need to see a Pollen Classic in my lifetime.
It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time.
Way too early prediction. Who's winning the Bassmaster Classic?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh. Not Chris Zaldan. Love Chris Zaldan. Not Chris Zaldan.
Heavy favorite.
Yeah.
Definitely a heavy favorite. He's going to be top 10. I don't think
Is Hank Cherry in it?
Hank Cherry.
Can he do it again?
Oh, God.
What day
I know
is it
something-
this year? End of
I know
March?
something stupid crazy.
Or early? No, it's gotta be mid-March, right?
What?
Yeah.
The Classic.
I don't
I
hate
forget what
Trey.
date. Oof.
I don't either. I'm going to put it out there. I have 2 picks.
I really
One
thought,
pick
yeah.
is a long time coming pick, and my other pick is unbearably random. But I just gotta.
Got a hunch.
I had an itch when I saw his name. I saw his name and I just went. Pick number 1 is Greg Hackney cannot go down without a Bassmaster Classic.
I don't think this is his classic.
It's not
Flippy
ideal for him.
bushes.
If that happens, it could.
It could. It could be. It could be.
That'd be pretty sick. Imagine watching
I
him
think
do
it's
that.
probably more likely Trey McKinney on a jerkbait. But my other pick, which if it is that jerkbaity thing, or like a hybrid half live scopey thing, I think it could be random as all hell, but I'm feeling it. Pat Schlapper.
Interesting take.
You know, don't hate it. He
Pat
did the thing
Schlapper,
with Toledo last year.
potentially the most underrated Elite Series fisherman.
Yeah.
He's made the classic.
Especially the last event.
He's made the classic every year he's been in. So he's been top 40 in AOY every year. And I'm pretty sure he was top 10 in AOY last year.
Yeah, no, he was.
Severely underrated. Pretty good at live scope. Pretty good with a jerkbait. I think he's going to have a good derb.
It could be a Pat Walters classic, too. I could totally see that happening.
Yeah.
I was going to say the other Patty might do well.
The other Patty. There's so many. I can't wait for a classic preview.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide whether I'm riding the John Garrett train or I'm going to flip a coin.
It could totally be a John Garrett train, too. I could totally see him winning classic.
Dude, the
He's
bucket.
So hot.
If we're not going to talk about it because that's for another episode, but the bucket A is tough. It's
I
so
haven't
So you got
Yeah.
the research to do. We might have to get a third-party analyst in here next week to get the breakdown.
Yeah, I have. Well,
I guess we'll find that next week.
Do we get our most loyal fan for a breakdown?
I think it'll be 2 weeks from now, but
yeah, it's the 20th. It looks like
it'll be 2 weeks from now. I'm trying to potentially line up something big for next week. So,
Ooh.
We'll
We'll see if Zoom makes it for next week.
see if I survive the cold. I'm actually going on my last ditch adventure next weekend. Ice, fulfilling my big Walter dream.
I don't think there's any ice left, bud.
2 feet in Messina. I was on 16 inches this weekend.
Oh my god,
It's okay.
yeah,
I don't know. It's gonna be 60
here's
this
gone.
week.
Ice
I'm
here
kind
is
of cracked out. I need to fix my shed.
I'm pulling the boat out this week. So,
Oh baby.
Yeah.
I gotta get.
All right. Well, I guess that'll
I'm
do
gonna go
it.
dream about fishing.
Yet
Yeah,
again.
Brennan, coming us live from Orlando. Go catch a pond bass and send us some pictures.
We're going on the Harris chain and we're going bed fishing on Saturday. So
Heck yeah.
got my travel pocket fishing rod. I'm ready, locked and
Pond
loaded.
boat.
Yo, no, we got a bass tracker set up. I think it's like a crest liner or a low. Wow. Got a little like 40 volt, 45
Lao?
pound.
I've never heard Lao.
I've
Have you
seen.
ever heard
It's
the term
low.
Lao?
Yeah.
Well, this is coming from the same guy who, not joking, dead serious, looked at me in the face one day and said, Gerald Swindle.
It just came out, man. It just came out.
Okay.
It felt right.
That's it. Cut it. Cut the can.